All right, we're going to look at the quadratic formula when we're solving quadratic functions. However, before we do that, we're going to look at an easier example. For example, this one where it says m squared minus 5m. An easier example, whenever we're solving these questions, we want to find two numbers that whenever we multiply it, when we multiply it, we get negative 14, but when we add them, we get negative 5. I already went ahead and solved this question, which is going to be negative 7 and negative 2, positive 2. And that's equal to 0, right? So then you take both portions. M minus 7 is equal to 0, and m minus 2 is equal to 0. Remember, you always want your quadratic function to equal to 0 as well. So if this 14 or our number was on this side, you'd bring it over to the next side first, and then you would solve. Again, the two numbers that go inside your parentheses are negative 7 and positive 2, because when you multiply them, you get negative 14, but when you add them, you get negative 5. So then we go through and we solve, we say m is equal to 7 and m is equal to 2. It's positive 2 here, so then the answer is negative 2. So the values for m are 7 and negative 2. Now let's look at an example if it's not a perfect number. What if we have to end up putting fractions in here? That's going to become difficult. That becomes harder. If it's just a flat 7 and a flat 2, then that's easy. All right, so now we got to look at an example, which is where the quadratic formula comes into play. You could also use the quadratic formula for something as easy as this. So if you wanted to, you could just use the quadratic formula all the time. The quadratic formula states, I'm going to put it over here, x, or in this instance, m, whatever the variable is, but the general formula states x is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, all divided by 2a. And from the packet we were working, there was a general form for what the quadratic equations are. That is a x squared minus b x plus c equals 0. When you're finding the roots of an equation, you're also talking about finding the solution of an equation. So whenever we go through, we find what m is, m equals 7 and m equals negative 2, we just found the roots of this equation, which they are the solution of this equation as well. Using the quadratic formula is finding the roots of an equation or the solution of an equation. So this is a quadratic function. All right, we already know what a is. I'll just label it for now so that we could follow. That's b, and that is c. A, b, and c. So we take our quadratic formula if we're trying to find the solutions for this or the roots of this function, and we say x is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a. So there's a negative, and then b is a negative 3. So I put that there. And then square root, b is a negative 3, so it's going to be a negative 3 squared minus 4 times a is 2 times c is negative 5. And all of that is divided by 2 times 2. All right, so we're just going to go through and solve this. And we're going to split up this equation so we can end up with our 2x values that we talk about. So let's switch colors. For one side, x is going to equal to, let's work this out actually. Negative times a negative 3 is, you can see a positive 3. I'm going to take the plus sign, and then I'm going to do a square root. Negative 3 squared is 9 minus. When you multiply all of this, you get positive 40, I think. 420. Yep. Divided by 4. On the other side, we're going to have to do this minus sign now. So we're going to have x is equal to 3 minus the square root of 9 plus 40 over 4. So x is equal to 3 plus the square root of 49 divided by 4. And then x is equal to 3 minus the square root of 49 over 4. Go through solve. 49 is a perfect square because 7 times 7 is 49. So this it ends up being 3 plus 7 over 4. 3 plus 7 is 10 over 4. You could also rewrite this as 5 over 2. You can work the other side out. So this ends up being 3 minus 7 over 4. And then 3 minus 7 is negative 4. Is it showing? Yeah. Divided by 4, which is equal to negative 1. So my two x values are 5 over 2 and negative 1. And those would be your answers. It's just a little bit more work to use the quadratic function. However, I don't want to go through and guess that 5 over 2 multiplied by negative 1 is going to give me a certain number, then add them together to give me another number. So if we go back to here, I'm going to switch back my screens. The negative 5 over 2 would go right here. And then the negative 1, the 1 would go right here. But that's me trying to go through and assume those when I could just use the quadratic formula. That's kind of just a brief introduction of the quadratic function. We're going to solve some questions. And then towards the end of class, we'll work some of the major questions on the packet. I'm going to go ahead and rewrite the function formula right here.